Well, for more on how U.S.-China trade tensions could impact the American economy, I'm joined by Laura Baughman. Laura is the president of Trade Partnership Worldwide. She's also a co-author of the report on the estimated impacts of proposed tariffs on imports of U.S. steel and aluminium. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So let's start by taking a look at the study. Tell us about some of the short and long-term implications raised in your study, especially when it comes to jobs.
Well, we concentrated very heavily on the economic effects that the proposed tariffs and counter-retaliation would have on U.S. jobs. And we found that should the United States impose tariffs on $50 billion worth of imports from China and China respond in kind, that as many as 134,000 U.S. jobs could be lost, and most of those would be jobs in low-skilled workers.
So tell us about some of the sectors that are going to be most affected by this.
Most affected would be agriculture, as you've been hearing about all day. 67,000 jobs in agriculture could be lost primarily because of retaliation. But also hard hit would be manufacturing jobs in motor vehicles, in transportation equipment, chemicals, rubber, plastics, those kinds of sectors. They would equally be harmed.
Now, Donald Trump is saying that he's going to find a way to protect the farmers despite the tariffs. Is that something that's feasible?
That's a good question. We'll have to wait and see. The World Trade Organization has a lot of restrictions now on the degree to which you can subsidize any industry, including agriculture. And farmers don't like subsidies. They are market folks. They want to compete in an open market on a level playing ground. They don't want subsidies.
And what are some of the broader economic implications for the U.S. if this tariff standoff continues?
Well, it really undermines U.S. leadership globally, particularly with respect to a campaign that we've been at the head of for many years, which is trade liberalization is good, and all countries should embrace it, and it's job creating, it's job promoting, and it's something that we really need to promote, and this undermines that position.
So then in terms of how you see some of these farmers, a lot of who we saw were based in states that supported Trump, you're estimating that they could see potentially a 15% drop in their income. How would that come about?
Well, they lose sales. Primarily, that's the biggest reason. Their export sales dry up, and they have no place else to export those products. They lose markets to their competitors, and you don't get those back.
And so what about the consumers? Because a lot of people are wondering, will the consumers want to pay that extra money if some of these U.S. farmers and some of these industries keep getting squeezed?
Yeah, consumers in America are very tight. You know, they don't like to pay extra for anything, except maybe the latest iPhone or something. But for the most part, consumers are very price conscious, and they're always looking for a deal. And so when you tell them that the price of that TV is going to go up by 23%, they say, well, then I just won't buy it.
So why do you think there's a disconnect? A lot of people perhaps are watching these trade talks, and they're wondering, well, this doesn't really affect me. It's not really hitting my pocketbook. What do you think is going to make it hit home for people?
Well, when they do see some prices going up, when they do see the selection of products dry up, you know, there is no more TVs in that offered as the promotional deal in Black Friday. You know, the Chinese TVs, imports of TVs from China were a big product for that. Then they'll start to notice it. They will also notice it when members of their family or your immediate family or extended family or friends start to lose jobs because their employers are no longer competitive. And they have to cut back on going out to dinner and even optional medical care or whatever. It'll catch up to them eventually.
So then for some of these companies who are stuck in the middle, obviously these are going to be prolonged negotiations, but it does mean a lot of uncertainty as companies try and plan what they're going to do. How should they be either protecting themselves or preparing themselves for these ongoing negotiations? Well,
that's a very important issue. The uncertainty can be almost as bad as the actual imposition of the tariffs. But basically, in fact, some people think the uncertainty could be even worse because once the tariffs are on, you know they're there and then you work around them somehow, although that's very expensive and time-consuming. So it's a conundrum a lot of companies are facing right now. They're postponing decisions on investments. They're postponing decisions on what they're going to do for hiring new workers or other things. Capital spending, taking advantage of the tax cut, the savings from the tax cuts, they're putting that stuff off because they just don't know what the future holds.
So very quickly, if you had to come up with one big takeaway, and especially when it comes to addressing these concerns without resorting to tariffs, what would it be?
Oh, without resorting, well, the key thing I think is for the administration to recognize that retaliation has unintended consequences that are very real. And so they need to find ways to encourage trading partners to make the changes that the United States wants made that are more strategic and more focused and have the least possible collateral damage.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Laura Baughman, the President of Trade Partnership Worldwide.